This meeting is being recorded.
Hello.
David? Still in Bali?
No, I am in Spain now.
In where?
Spain?
Spain.
Yes.
Okay. You get around.
Yes, a lot. We are searching a place now, so that's why I have difficulty to participate at meetings because we are very busy at the moment to organize life again.
So you expect to stay in Spain for a limited period or forever?
Between 1 and 3 years, but we'll see. We'll see.
Hmm.
Yeah, because I want to give in English, but because of my child, so he can have more, he can have friends, and so we want to move a little bit less now.
So will he start preschool or kindergarten soon at this age?
Yes, well, we are looking at it. We don't know yet what education is best, and we want free school, but because of our work, it's difficult to make it happen. Like so that's why we are very busy, because we are looking at places and cities, and my life is very oriented toward the well-being of my child.
Yeah,
So
of course.
it's a lot of work. Yeah.
Vetoing Australia.
Just excuse me for a minute. I'm back. I ordered a tow bar for this car nearly 6 weeks ago, and it's just been mucking around, never getting here. And so, yeah. But that was the tow ball people saying, it got rained on, and the address got washed off it, and they'll have to put a new sticker on it, and it'll be next week now. So it'll be 8 weeks from when I paid for it to when I get it. That's if it does happen. Anyway. So does your wife work as well? She does the same kind of thing as you?
Oh, she mainly take care of our son at the
Oh yeah,
moment.
yeah. Well, that's a job, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but she's a Montessori teacher, and she's starting her own um, um, she's offering uh, her experience people now more and more online also. So she's kind of now she's having, because he's 3 years old, so now she have more time. She
Yep, yep,
says
yep.
she's kind of starting again professionally.
Yep. So what does she teach?
She teach child education. She
All
teach
right. Yep.
parents who want to teach home, and she also help women reach their goals and purpose.
Mm. Like a life coach kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, kind of.
Mm. Mm. So do you and her speak Spanish?
Yes, we speak Spanish with each other, and I speak French to my son, and she speaks Italian to him. So we have three
So he's
language at home.
only three, not English.
English it's at school. So at
Mm.
school, I mean, because we are traveling, and when we meet people, often it was in English, but now it's more in Spanish. So we'll see
Hmm.
what happens with the English.
Mm. Oh, that's a great age to learn multiple languages. It's no effort for them at that age, is it?
Yeah, no, no, no. And he's shifting very easily.
Mm. Good one.
But
Yeah.
it's a practice, because now when I travel, I had to switch between the three languages, because I was French with my son, Spanish with my partner, and English to people. So it requires special ability to be able to switch sentence in the switch
Yeah. Yeah.
language in the
Yeah. Yeah.
moment, when you speak to
Yeah. Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
So
So
it was very
do you think
interesting.
in one language or do you think in all of the languages?
It depends. That's very interesting. It depends on what I'm thinking about. For
Mm.
example, for everything about non-duality, I think English is the best, because
Oh, okay.
English have the doesn't have the feminine and masculine on words,
Right.
and
Yeah.
it has this capacity to name, like, for example, God or reality. You can speak with it, and it is kind of neutral, in a neutral way.
Mm.
But in
Mm.
French and Spanish, you have to give it like it's masculine or feminine. And when you
Yes. Yes.
speak, it
Yeah.
seems like it's a person after. Even if you talk about reality, you cannot, you have to say, like, if it's reality, you have to say he or she when you speak about reality. Or even an object, a chair, you say the chair, and after, if you speak about the chair, you have to say he or she, even
Mm.
if you speak about a chair. So it's even more confusing, because
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
language there is this sense of personhood, of individuality, and
Do you think
so I
that's
think
come
English
from?
is very good.
Do you think that gender uh, reference comes from a Catholic religion?
I have no idea how,
Mm.
how the structure of language is built. I know it comes from Latin, so I surely have to get involved into Latin, but I
Mm.
don't know. I don't know why
Mm.
we choose to give masculinity or femininity to objects.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's
But I
crazy,
think
isn't it? Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
but for me it was normal, and when I learned English, I was like, that's just so. I mean, it's obvious that an object is neutral.
Mm.
I mean, yeah. So it's interesting, but each language have its beauty, depending on what you speak
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
And I think it's very good to learn language, because when you learn language, you can really see that people think differently.
Mm,
And
mm.
even if it seems that we speak about the same object, the way your mind think about this object or situation in different language has different taste, completely
Yes,
different
yeah.
taste.
Yeah, language is so powerful in its conditioning, I guess, of us, isn't it? It's incredible. Yeah.
Mhm.
Like I had a story from many years ago that Arabic has a lot more adjectives than English, like 5 adjectives to every one in English. Um,
Oh, really?
so it's a very good one for describing things in a much more subtle detail than English. Yeah. But I didn't appreciate that masculine feminine bent of a lot of the languages. That's really limiting, isn't
Yeah,
it? Yeah.
yeah, I find it very confusing.
Mm,
But just simple examples, in in French, for example, when you say it's raining, you have to say he is raining. He is
mm,
raining. So there's no it. But when you say he is raining, who is raining? I mean, no
mm,
one is
mm,
raining. And it's the
mm,
same with everything, you
mm.
know? So it's become very strange. But there are other languages that are very like Arabic. I don't know Arabic. I love the writing. I think the writing is one of the most beautiful writing I've seen. It's beautiful. I mean, it's really, really beautiful. But I haven't studied, so I don't know. But I know that, for example, in Japanese, they don't the you just say the verb, and after you say um, the tense it is. So, for example, you say drive future, so you will drive in the future. So
Mm,
the structure is very easy. It's very nice put the
mm,
structure. So they're
mm,
very different language. In Indonesian, for example, they have someone explained to me somehow that they don't have the past and future in their language very strongly. So they don't have all of these future, present, near future, far future, conditional future. It's completely different, They just say, "I will come." You have no idea of of when,
yeah,
They live
yeah.
in a completely different framework. It's very amazing. But I think that what is really like we think that there is a mind that is conditioned in in some language, but in fact there is the language is the mind as it appears at the moment.
Mm,
So yeah, if you dive into language and concept, you, you go very deep very fast because almost everything
mm,
we believe it's there. It's really conceptual.
yeah. That's tricky, isn't it? Mm,
And you, Vince, how are you, Vince? Long
yeah, I'm
time.
good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm everything, but mostly good. Mm, mm. Are you there, Sard? Nope.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah. How are you doing?
Hmm. I'm doing all right. It's actually I'm in California, so it's like about 6:15 p.m. here.
Right. Yep.
I heard about these meetings. I think from 2 different places, and then I put it on my calendar, so I thought I'd drop in.
Yeah. Good. Good to hear you. Yeah. Yeah. Well, for some reason, you're the only one that's turned up today, besides David and myself. So you're lucky that you've got 2 guides here if you wish to explore anything.
Sure. I'm not really clear on where I am in the process of the journey.
Mm-hmm.
I've started the Liberation Unleashed guiding process. And this is my second time starting it. I think the first time the guide and I don't think I understood the guide well. So I paused and then came back.
And got a different guide when you came back?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So how
Yeah.
long have you been working at that, or I guess that's not really what I'm asking, is how far through that how are you going with it?
As far as I can tell, or it seems, I don't think I've seen through self.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I recently heard about the fetters, and that's kind of what was recommended. This meeting was recommended again, and that's when I thought to join. But yeah, I don't know if I've seen through any of it, but at the same time, I've been meditating / I don't know, reading about non-duality or this stuff for maybe 10, 12 years, maybe a little less. I mean, meditating for a long time, but then the non-duality maybe the past 5 or 6 years or something like
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, yeah. So when you say you don't think you've seen through self, why do you say that? What's your evidence, if you like? Probably not the right word, but what gives you the idea that you haven't seen through self?
I mean, that's a great question. I'm not sure what evidence I have. I mean, I guess I would say that I often react in my day to day as if there's a self here.
Mm-hmm. So you
That would probably
take
be my.
Go on.
Yeah, I mean, I feel a sense of responsibility for, good or bad outcomes, kind of, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And emotionally, I notice that I react when, something good or bad tends to happen. Like I take it. And even though I kind of know I'm not like, it doesn't make sense to take it personally, and like logically it makes sense that there is no free will.
Mm-hmm.
However, yeah, emotionally there's still that activity.
Yeah. So when you do react to something, do you eventually recognize that you've been triggered?
Yes.
Okay. So of course I'm jumping the gun a little here, but I often come across people that have a similar kind of thing to what you're saying, and they presume because they still have reactivity that they haven't seen through self. And that's not necessarily the case. Even after seeing through self, you may find that there are residual triggers that haven't been discovered yet, and once discovered and seen, will probably not come back. But sometimes they do, and if they do, would suggest that there's something a little bit deeper that needs to be looked at. But just because you get triggered does not mean that you haven't seen through self. And if you recognize that you were triggered, that's like you you've stepped outside of being the expression of some emotion and you're observing it from the outside. And that's a pretty healthy place to be. And that usually will mean that you'll start to lose those triggers. They'll stop having their effect on you, unless of course they are based on something much deeper. But anyway, that's pretty general kind of stuff. So I would say don't be too sure you haven't seen through self just because you get triggered.
Okay.
A lot of it's habit, you know. A lot of our responses that we take to be selfing. I mean, they are kind of selfing in their behaviour, but it doesn't mean that you believe that there's a self running the show. If you look at it and you can see that there's not a self running the show, then it probably is just a residual that you've got coming up. And in the beginning, there'll be lots of residual, but they'll get less and less further apart. I'd like to say they get less intense, but that's not necessarily the case. Often the opposite is the case, that because we are removing filters, then that intensity can be bigger sometimes than it used to be, because we haven't got the controls that we used to have. That's another interesting one. But yeah. So your guided LU are they focusing on any particular area for you?
Yes. Well, I just started with this new guide, so I think the most recent thing was about. I mean, the post was about like, do you see an apple? And the description was along the lines of you see, like, there's color, there's sensation, there's taste, there's smell, and there's the thought apple that appears. So you can see the thought apple, but do you see apple? And it seemed, I mean, what I responded was, yes, I mean, I don't have an apple nearby, but I had a pomelo, so I used that. But yeah, the same, like there's these multiple experiences like sight, sound, taste, and you kind of lump them together, and then the label, like apple or pomelo.
Yeah.
But I didn't really understand what that was like, why that was significant. I mean,
okay, yeah.
I don't.
Okay, well, look, it's kind of pretty straightforward if we look at it, take a step back and look at it. They're trying to show you that your direct experience is one thing, and that you overlay that with a concept. You know, so you have a conceptual experience. That's a bit shitty, but you have an experience of a concept, right, which is apple. But if you get behind that label, you will see that you don't have an experience of apple. Your experience is in through your senses, and you have a sense of touch, a sense of sight, a sense of smell, of taste, whatever, but they don't make up an apple. The fact that there's an apple is a conceptual overlay on those sense inputs. That's all. So the difference between a concept and a direct experience is what they're trying to get you to recognize with that one. So you can see that. I can say, can you see that? Say, look, I use a cup. I like a cup as an example. Can you see that the concept of a cup includes stories about it containing something that you can drink?
Yes, generally does a cup.
Yeah, but in your direct experience, that doesn't exist. In your direct experience, you're seeing what we describe as, what we use labels as, color, shape, form, etc. And that you have to use the mind to turn those colors and shapes into a cup.
Okay. That, I mean, I kind of follow. What's coming up is that in like the visual field, there is like something where you can pour a liquid into. Even in the vision, I mean, yes, the concept of a cup is, you know, some container that you can pour liquid into, but it seems to match. Like I guess when I see a light, I don't think cup. Or yeah, I guess what would be the opposite? Like if you saw the cup without the label cup, like how would it? What I guess what is it? What is the point of that?
The point of it is to recognize that most people go around relating to a mind produced concept rather than what is actual. Now, it's not saying anything's right or wrong about that, just that that is the way it is. Our world is developed in such a way that we don't even notice what is actually there, because what the brain does, being a predictive organ, is it takes the smallest amount of information that it can use to create an outcome. And so when the moment that happens, we then relate to that outcome, whatever it is. So we don't even see the cup. A lot of the time, if I ask you your favorite cup, what's written on the bottom of it, you probably couldn't tell me. Or if I said the shape of the handle on it, without looking at it, that shape, is it flat or is it round? Is it what has it got a groove in it? You probably don't even notice those things because you relate to the idea mostly. Even when you put your hand on it and pick it up and use it, you're not really noticing it in detail. You're simply relating to your idea of it.
Okay.
Once you grasp that, then we can move on to the next step. But that idea that there is that really most of the world exists as a concept for most people, not as an actuality. Of course, we still respond to the concept, and that's where the idea of a self comes from, because we respond to a concept and we then have a feeling that we use to validate what we've imagined. We've been duped.
There's a feeling that when you see a cup that validates the concept.
Yeah, yeah, that's puts it a little differently. Yes. No, when you see your cup, you know, you pick out a cup, and let's say you don't have a favorite cup. Let's say you go to the cupboard or the drawer or wherever your cups are kept, and without looking, you reach in and you pick one out, and you then put a liquid in it to drink. It's not. You don't even need to look at the cup. You know, you felt it when you picked it up. You hold it up the right way. You know where to put it in order to put liquid into it. And you do all of that without actually relating to the actual thing, even though you are using the actual thing. It gets a little tricky there, doesn't it? Once you can recognize that there is such a thing as direct experiencing, you can probably dismiss it to a fairly large degree, simply because direct experiencing usually happens for such a short period of time, like milliseconds really, before thoughts arrive to explain it and describe it and do whatever thoughts do about it. So most of the time what we're doing is we're responding to the thought thing rather than to the actual thing. Yeah. All right. Let's let David have a go at describing something to you. I mean, he was smiling at some of my stuff there. So, and he's a great balance for me. He puts things in a different perspective.
Thank you.
What I hear, Saad, is you ask yourself the relevance of inquiring to what is a concept, what is the relevance to the no self. things, right? So my approach would be to show you directly what is the relevance if you are up to. Do you agree that the future and the past are thoughts, are concepts
Yes.
that are
Yes.
appearing? Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So describe me sad, describe me who you are without using concepts.
Mhm. Without using words, or all words are concepts, right?
Yeah. So you see, we in general, in day-to-day life, if someone come to me and say, "Who are you?" I will say, "I'm David. I'm come from this country. I have this work," and I start to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this is a game we play. If we really get serious, and someone come to me and say, "Who you are?" I have to say, "I know I am, but I cannot describe it. I can tell you stories that may be useful, but they are not what I am, because you are not a concept." Do you agree?
I mean, if I can use words for a second, when I look for who I am, yeah, I can see that there, or in experience, there's, I mean, indirect experience, there's a visual field, there's sound, there's hearing, there's sensations, and there are even like mental images or thoughts that appear, and they all appear here in like in a flow. And that's, yeah, and then I've noticed that taking all these together, I can put together like like a body and stuff. But that but yeah, that's as far as I see it, I experience it.
Yeah, but you see, what you describe is direct experience. This flow that you're describing is direct experience, and from this flow, we somehow there is an extraction, and we say, okay, this is a sensation, this is thinking, this is perceiving, and then there is a story, right? Okay, so I am here in a chair watching a computer, and there's people there, and all, but so very fast you enter into the conceptual, into abstraction, into the story. But your actual
Yes.
experience is what you just did describe, is flow. And this is as far, if you are honest, this is as far as you can go. After, it's imagination.
Yeah. Yes, and it's almost I mean, I don't know how to stay. I mean, even the direct experience, it's like my attention will be on direct experience, and then it will go into abstraction. Like I'll start thinking, or there'll be some mental images, and then there's what to do later, or what it'll just automatically go there, and then it'll come back, and that seems to happen.
Yeah, but you see, what you describe, it's an activity. So now we are speaking about three things, right? We're speaking about direct experience, about what you say, how fast we are kind of distracted, or we zoom in into one very specific part of our experience, and we zoom in, and the other is the self. Where is the individual self in all of what we are speaking right now? Where it is? Can you find it?
When I inquire, it tends to jump to a sensation, but then, I mean, it's usually somewhere in the head, or but I mean, the foot could be equally the right answer. I don't know. It's just it. I mean, it doesn't seem like you can. It doesn't seem that you can find like something that you can point to and say that's it, that's me, or that's a self.
Well, the guidance in LU is pointing towards this fact that you there is kind of there is an experience of a self, you can say, but you can never find it in your direct experience. And the image can be interesting. Is like if you are watching, now they do big screen. I was in a shop and they did a screen that was almost like a wall, it was, and the quality was, I mean, I got very near and it was so amazing. So if I'm watching a big screen and there's a turtle on the screen, right? I can describe this in two ways. I can say I'm watching a turtle swimming, or I can say I'm watching a screen. But in both ways, I'm describing the same experience, the same the same flow. So in a way, we are so used to focus on our individuality and concept that we forgot that there is a lot more available to us in the moment. And the person, the individual, it's an appearance within our direct experience that you are describing already. Make sense?
So like the visual, yeah. So like the visual. I mean, I've went to the Headless Way for the past, I think, 2 years, and I mean, what I understood from there was, yeah, I can see that in the visual field there's my body, and then there's no visible head, and there's just the world, and the whole thing is kind of appearing, and then there's sensation, and I kind of notice how those two are put together to make like the feeling of like, oh, this is. I mean, it's very quick. Sometimes I'll notice it. Sometimes I'll get lost in it. But it seems that the sensations are not necessarily like it. I'm not sure how I'm trying to describe, but yeah, the visual field has the body, but it has more than the body, and the sensations are just kind of floating in wherever.
Yeah, yeah.
And they feel localized when I have a mental image. And I recently, maybe a couple of months ago, someone pointed out that there are mental images, and I realized that I can't localize my sensation without some sort of mental image.
Well, it seems that you are very deep already. So I don't know really now what if you have a question or something, because it seems that you are clear about how experience, about like everything is present, but is undefinable, and language. When we speak on concept, seems to make sense, right? It seems that everything is here. But when we say here, what do you mean? Often thoughts will say, oh, in space, right? But when you inquire, just like you say, you never find this space outside. Everything is in your experience, in you can say. But the mind will always put his you, his little self inside a body, and his body is inside a room, and his room is inside a building, and this building is in earth, and earth is in space, and you are again, you feel like, oh, I'm gonna die, I'm a person, I have problems, and but if you look carefully, no, but wait a minute. The only experience I have of the universe, earth, a building, a room of a body or a body, the only experience I have is sensation and perception, and both are appearing in me here, not here in a place in space, but here in me. So if you know where you are, it's a good sign, you know, because we really don't know. So L, you focus on there is no self, and maybe it's the word self that is confusing in your process, because from our perspective you are seeing very clearly. I don't know if someone has Vince, if you have something to say about this confusion about, because I'm under the impression that side you are very clear.
I think that there's an expectation for me that when I see through whatever this journey is supposed to show, or there's going to be some more okayness with what's going on in life, and it's not as, I mean, I think if there was a okayness, or I'm not looking for euphoria, like, necessarily. I just want to know. I mean, I don't know if this is. I mean, I'm happy to have someone say that's not realistic, but I had an expectation that there would be some peace at the end, or at some point along this process. So yeah, if you can speak on that.
I would say I want to speak about paradox, because I think it's not really spoken about, and I think it's very relevant. Is to say, from a human perspective, the human will never be at peace. I mean, if you have a human experience, it's it's really painful. It's painless, you know. There is pain, there is emotion. You have to take care of the body, and nothing really nothing really work here, because everything you build over time, it will just collapse, and people die, and you will die, and your body gets fucked up over time, and all of this. So the person, the individual point of view, there is no really peace from that perspective. But from a broader perspective, there is always peace. And it's not that it's one or the other. It's just that they are overlapping constantly. And to me, this unshakable peace is not about getting rid of your humanness, or your individual experience. Is more to broaden enough your perception, so that you are so the peace that is around is more predominant is than your 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 individual experience. It's not one or the other. It's not a broadening of your sensitivity to more to more. I don't know if that makes sense to you, Vince. I don't know, or Vince or Tyler. I don't know.
Are you having thoughts, Tyler? What would you tell Sard?
Well, yeah, it's definitely a perspective thing, because feeling a lack of okayness means that you're viewing things from the perspective of something that can be threatened, something that's not safe. It's like, why is there a lack of okayness? Because it doesn't mean that, yeah, you're human, the humans will never be okay. We always need something, and shit's always gonna go wrong. But like, to not have a sense of okayness shows, it indicates that you have some identification with the person that is like being subject to the world. That there's threats out there for you, that you're not safe.
That feels accurate. Yeah, I mean, so and on one level, I see something clearly, but on another level, like you said, I still perceive threat. So where do I, or what would you recommend? Where would I inquire from here to find that greater paradox piece?
Well, how about this? This is one of the things that part of my experience that that I think might be helpful for you to appreciate. Can you grasp that when you experience something and then you become aware of what you experience, that your awareness always lags the actual experience by maybe just milliseconds, but it always lags the experience. There is the experience, then there is awareness of it. Can you get that?
I actually, no, not exactly. It seems like they're at the same time, or how would there be experience without? I thought when I'm aware of something is when the experience first appears.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. That can be right. That can be quite tricky. That one. So sometimes your experience is only the experience of becoming aware of something. That can be an experience as well. But let's say something touches you on the back of the neck, right? Like we can imagine maybe a mosquito lands on the back of your neck. You just imagine that you get a sensation of touch on the back of your neck, and then you become aware of it. Right? You're not aware of it as it's happening. There is a slight lag, just milliseconds maybe, but there is a slight lag before you actually cognitize, or whatever, I'm not sure of that word, cognate that something has happened. And so for me, this was part of my waking up, was this realization that by the time I became aware of anything, it was already done. It was already finished. And so consequently, any idea that it should be different not only was a total waste of time, but it actually corrupted my next experience. So what that brought for me was a significant acceptance or surrender to whatever turned up. That was a really, really big experience for me. That was my waking up experience, and it was huge. So the idea that, I mean, obviously you can't experience something that hasn't yet happened. And although your experience could be the becoming aware of something, because we do respond to things. So when you get that touch on the back of the neck, it's the mind that says, oh, that's a mosquito. Right? You don't know it's a mosquito. You can't see it. All you did is you felt something very light on the back of your neck. So the mind comes along and says, oh, that's a mosquito. So what do? You swat it. You tap it. That's that thing. That's your bodily reaction to it. But you're responding to the thought that it's a mosquito, and if you don't swap it soon, it's going to bite you. So that's the way. That seems to be a fairly good description of what we do when we go through life. We have sense input, and we then respond to what the mind says about the sense input. Sometimes we'll respond to the sense input directly. Like we might scratch it without even realizing that we're doing it. But most of the time, anything a bit bigger than that, the mind is going to come along and want to describe it, and then we respond to what the mind says. So if you examine any of those things, I think I heard you use the word threat. If you examine anything that appears to be a threat, you'll discover that what you're examining is a story. In most cases, not always, but very likely it'll be a story about what might be going to happen. rather than what actually exists at the moment. And that's where suffering comes from. I mean, I generalize a lot, and that's not good, but do you get the idea of that?
Yeah, I followed the part where you said that basically, so yeah, it's like direct experience is the fly landing on the back of the neck, and
No, the
then
direct experience is a sensation.
a
We don't know
sensation.
what
Okay.
caused the sensation,
Mm-hmm.
but we experience a sensation.
Mm.
And
Yes.
then the mind comes along and says, oh, maybe that's a fly or a mosquito or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I recently had some ants, and yeah, so sometimes there'll be a sensation of crawling on my foot, and then yeah, my mind would say that that's an ant, and
Yes.
sometimes it was right, and sometimes it was just, it wasn't right, but I was imagining it.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah. But
okay.
when you were imagining it, you weren't imagining, you imagined that there was something on your foot, but you weren't imagining that there was a sensation. You experienced the
Right.
sensation. Yeah. You just imagined what it was about. And then that's what you'll respond to, your imagination.
And so telling the story about the experience is where the difficulty comes up, where the suffering comes up.
Absolutely, yeah. That's where we complicate life hugely. So you watch yourself and watch other people, and you'll see them going through life responding to things they imagine, not to what is actually there. And if their personality or whatever it is such that they are pessimistic, they'll always be in trouble because their imagination will always be about problems. So the main thing that I'd like to get over to you is that the idea of direct experience is simply knowing that it exists so that you can differentiate it from what you imagine. And once you get that those are two separate things or two experiences, then you can start to get more real. That's the best way I can put it.
That makes sense. There is I don't know if there's a concern or fear of letting go of that control, or it seems in some way or it's even there is a fear of it, for like letting go of control, and then
Yeah.
there's also a inability to, like, even if I wanted to say, okay, I'm gonna try to stay with the direct experience.
Okay, yeah, I get it. Yeah. So that comes back to what David was saying about paradox, You can't let go of control because there never was any control. You only ever imagined that there was control. If you look at what actually happens in view of the things that we've already said today, you'll recognize that there cannot be control. It's just the appearance of control. And that's what I was saying earlier about how a sensation will validate a thought, right? So you walk across the room and you don't even realize you've walked across the room, right? There's been no conscious control of the fact that you walked across the room. But if you get to the other side and you stop and you look back, you could say, I did that. And you could say, I chose to do that on purpose and I chose to walk in that way. But that's bullshit. You didn't. You just did it unconsciously. Your body walked. You didn't walk. There is nothing, there was no control involved whatsoever. But the mind will tell you, yes, you controlled it. And if you believe the mind, then you've got this illusion, or rather delusion, of control. So when you get frightened about the idea of giving up control, just remember that you never had control to give it up. Just like the self, you never had a self in order to lose it. So that's kind of a bit of a funny thing with LU. They talk about no self like it's actually a thing, but it's not. There never was a self. And they're realizing that there never was a self is really what they're about. That's what the intention is. So your fear is about what you imagine, nothing real. The fear is real. There's nothing unreal about what you respond with, and that is fear, but you're responding to an idea, not to anything actual.
What is very interesting about direct experience is not that you don't have to stop doing something to explore direct experience. So if you have this experience of being lost in your thought, or being lost in your suffering or life, or all of this, you don't have to stop anything. You can really just, because everything that appears, it's a phenomenon inside direct experience. It is direct experience. So, like Vince say that everything it's anticipated or thought about. So when experiences is appearing, whatever it is, you can ask yourself where it is happening and what it is happening, really. So, and it's not about changing anything. So you can let behaviorally, if there is an ant, you will just remove it and it's fine and everything. No, it's not about doing something or stop doing something. It's about what is present. So if you pay attention, you will see more and more how the mind just moves you a little bit in the future constantly, or a little bit in the past constantly. It always do that. It just, and 1 second is the same as 1,000 of fear. It doesn't matter, because it's just not what's happening. So the threat and the fear, we often feel fear because we believe things are outside. For example, I was to the doctor and there was a needle right going into my arm, and I could see he was getting ready and the needle was there, and my mind was already feeling the pain. The mind was projecting the pain. At some point I just relaxed. I was like, do I really feel pain? What do I feel? And I just feel a tingly sensation. I just close my eyes because the visual can be very strong. I feel these tingly sensations of the body, and after I opened the eyes again, and I saw the needle, and I saw the invitation that to go back into this state. And I said, no, this is just an image. I don't feel right now. I will maybe, but right now, no, I'm not feeling the pain. So it was I was very calm. And then the needle touched my skin, enter, and the sensation was like, yeah, but it was not painful. It was just, oh yeah, it's not very nice, but it's fine. So the expectation make your life a misery, and it build fear that is not necessary. So if you are sensitive to what is happening when you have fear, right? And money is the same. I have no money. Well, feel, do you have hunger? No. So you are fine, right? So see how much the mind is just pushing you constantly outward in outward situation. And when you see clearly, you see that the situation is never outside. The problem is right here, constantly. And if you did this enough time, you will see that you are fine, because everything is in you.
Thank you.
You are muted, Vince.
Sard, what do you tell yourself about why you haven't turned your camera on? Why we can't see you?
It's because it's nighttime, and I mean, that's the main reason. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
it's nighttime and I'm in the dark, and I just kind of I I was gonna go to sleep, and then I just saw in my calendar that I had put this meeting up, and I thought, okay, let me just listen in for a few minutes, and then
hmm
you called my name, so then I decided to get up and leave the bedroom and come
Right.
here and talk to you.
There you go. Well, there you go. See, I had ideas that you just debunked. You know, I had ideas that you were maybe self-conscious and that's why you didn't have your camera turned on. You see, so I guess that's the reason why I asked. So you can see how behavior follows a mental story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So one thing that people say when they wake up is that nothing has changed, but everything is different. And that's a very big generalization, of course, but certainly some things will be different, and maybe more and more things over time will be different. Yet, because they're there, I get myself into a mental knot here. Because they're there, they'll become ordinary. But essentially, what we're saying is that shit's still going to happen to you, but your attitude towards it will change. Right? When you stop fighting it, you don't add to what is there. And if you can put things in a certain perspective, then you don't even mind that needle going into your arm. You don't even mind the shit that turns up. And in fact, if you do respond to that, then you can recognize that that's an opportunity for you to look at something going on underneath the surface. That can be also a really good thing. So once you've been awake for a little while, you kind of can look forward to shit happening because it gives you something to look at. But that's just a story too. But that is my experience. Yeah. So you I guess most people will. If I said, "Have you got a body?" They'll say, "Yes, very very definitely. I've got a body." But I say, "How do you know you've got a body?" And they'll give me reasons. They'll give me stories about it. If I ask you, "How do you know you've got a back of your head? How do you know that the back of your head exists without touching it? Do you know that you've got the back of your head there, or do you just assume that it's there?"
It's a it's a mental image that I
Exactly.
would be
Yeah.
using.
Yeah. Now,
Um,
even if you reached out and touched the back of your head, what would you have that was more than a sensation in your fingertips and a sensation in your skull? It's still not the back of your head, is it? It's just a couple of sensations, right? The idea of it
yeah,
being the back of your head is just an idea. The idea that you've got a body is just an idea. What you've got is each individual part that you might focus on. You know, so you focus on your feet, and when you focused on your feet, have you got a backside? No, not in your direct experience. You don't have. Right? If I ask you if you're sitting down now, if I ask you where does your body end and whatever you're sitting on begin, you can't really find it. It's a general feeling, but you can't locate it in space. You don't know what's the beginning and what's the end of you. It's just an assumption that there is a beginning and an end to you. So the idea of self gets validated by the stories that are associated with sensations. But when you go looking, you will never find a self. You can only assume that there's a self running the show. You can never find it, and you can never validate it in actual fact. So here's an interesting one, and one I feel is really important for people to get a grasp of, and that is that there is an absolute, and then there is a relative. And the relative is your whole world. The absolute is unknown, right? So let's say we're looking at a tree, and next to you is a dog looking at a tree, and next to that is a frog looking at a tree. Every one of you is going to have a totally different experience of that tree. Right? And in actual fact, it isn't a tree. It's just an input to your senses. It's an experience. You experience something you might call color, something you might call shape, or whatever. And if you go right up to it and touch it, then you've got an experience of sensation. You've got an experience of color. When you look, you might have an experience of smell if it's got a smell about it. And so, but you at no time do you have an experience.
To try again.
At no time do you have an experience of tree. That is a concept, just a concept. Do you get that?
Yeah, the label tree can be used for a lot of different experiences if they're not consistent necessarily. So, like you said, the experience of seeing or smelling the pine tree, if it's a pine tree or something, or touching it, these are all like experiences that appear and then go.
Yep.
And then I just kind of bundle them up and call them tree.
Exactly. Perfect. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. Just like you bundle it up and call it body, or you bundle it up and call it world, or you bundle it up and call it other people. Right? But it's always what comes in through your senses plus what you imagine. And in that way, we can say that our mind is our sixth sense because we respond to the mind just the same as we respond to any of the other senses being stimulated.
Yes, that's my experience. That yeah, it does appear like the other senses.
So I want to bring up that the fear of letting go and surrender and the mind's inability to do so comes from the beliefs that, we're a separate thing that can be threatened, and also the belief that I can do something about it, that I can do damage control, right? And even this entire spiritual path thing is a form of control that the person uses to try and get out of the not okayness. Like how I described this earlier, and then your first question was, oh, so what can I inquire to do about that? So I'm going to give you like an anti-inquiry, which is, oh, what if I just can't do anything about this? Because in my experience, this sort of surrendering and letting go into direct experience and, the mind stops grasping, this can only happen when you really deeply realize that there's nothing you can do about anything. And you can try and you can keep trying, and eventually you'll see it. If you keep trying and nothing changes, there's still not okayness. Maybe you'll get that. You really can't do anything about the not okayness. But it's a really good thing that you can't do anything, because then you'll stop trying. Then you'll see that there was never much to do anything about. Also, the suffering comes from trying to fix an imaginary problem. So, yeah, maybe try that. When you feel uncomfortable, when you feel like the mind can't stop grasping, just ask, what if I can't do anything about this? See where that leads you.
Okay.
the control. It. Thank you, Tyler. It was very good. The control thing. It's very tricky because it's not like black and white as we can read in books or as teacher often point to. And I think this can be really misleading. And as Tyler pointed, the most misleading thing is believe that I have so much control that I will stop controlling. You know, this is this is kind of the highest confusion. And it's from some perspective, it's true that there is no control, and from another there is. So we often step very fast into the paradoxical nature of what is here, and often the whole thing about control, it was the case for me, is you have to try everything and see it fail, and failure is the success. It's also true that if you feel that you can do something about it, it's impossible not to do it. I mean, you know, it's like, yeah, do it, you know. So, yeah.
And it occurs to me that this is a paradox too. Your fastest road to success, and none of that is true, but that's a concept that might be useful here. Your fastest road to success is to remove any effort towards it. So if you take everything that you've heard today as a seed that may germinate or may not germinate, then that's your best attitude to have towards it. There's nothing for you to do. You don't have to take anything we've said and work at it. If you do work at it, you miss the point. You've just got to allow these seeds to germinate. Some will and some won't. And the ones that won't, don't worry, we'll plant some more at some point. Just be relaxed about it all. When you're ready to go, just go to sleep and be relaxed and let it happen in your sleep. That's where it'll happen.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you. How have you been, Ramiz?
I have no idea.
Oh, good. I love that. Yeah.
I've been listening to a podcast about aphantasia, the lack of mental imagery, and it's related to also the blind sights. It's when the mind reacts to something that it has no experience of it.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
It is.
And I think also it was mentioned how it relates to intuition, and I feel like the same mechanism is also what creates trauma. It's like the body reacts to patterns and sensations and things that the awareness, there's no awareness of the effect of what's causing the reaction.
I think
So
maybe
you go.
you can go broader in a way that the way maybe it's the way you speak, right? But the the body that reacts to something, it kind of implies some kind of cause and effect. While your experience as a whole appear instantaneously altogether, and within this experience there is this hallucination, the making of something that is causing something else inside of it. And even if it's true, it is true within the fact that everything appears instantaneously. It's like, maybe it's confusing, but when you dream, it's like cause effect in a dream, right? If I'm dreaming and I'm seeing a dragon in my dream, and I feel fear, right? So I can speak in a way that to say, I saw a dragon in my dream and I felt fear. So the cause of my fear was the dragon, and I'm powerless, right? Another way of saying it is the fear and the dragon appear in your experience instantaneously. And the body and whatever the body perceive are both pattern appearing in the moment.
I don't know how this relates to what I said. Like, the point is that the awareness of the object is not necessarily for the effects to happen. In that experiment they did, called backward masking, they have an image of for a few milliseconds and then a blank image, and then an image of whatever. And if in this experiment you wouldn't be conscious of the first image, you don't know what, like, if there is a letter and you saw this transition, you won't be able to know that even there was a letter. You wouldn't recognize it. But when there was an image of a snake or something that might cause a physical reaction of fear, the body was reacting to something that the eye saw, registered, but I wasn't aware of it. So yeah, you could say that the cause and effect happens simultaneously, because it's too fast for the awareness to catch it even.
Well, I think the confusion is when you speak about awareness, I don't think we're speaking about the same thing.
The awareness is the recognition that I saw something and have label for it. Like I recognize that I saw something.
This is the limited perspective, right?
Just I'm just saying about the experiment, not
Okay.
making any conclusions about it.
Yeah. It's impossible to appreciate. It's impossible to grasp how fast some of this stuff does happen, and what's behind it too. So it's interesting that young babies, say a toddler crawling around, probably has no fear of a snake whatsoever. Yet by the time that person becomes an adult or even a child, probably, they've developed a fear of that snake. And so when the eye sees something that it mistakes or actually is, it doesn't matter, a snake, then the reaction to that is really fast, but it's based on something else, some stored idea that a snake is dangerous. We're not reacting to the eyes, we're reacting to the story about what the eyes perceive. But it all happens in fractions of milliseconds, so fast that we don't have any idea. It's just impossible to grasp the speed of it. And we don't associate the fear of the snake with any actual experience. There may be no actual experience, but it's a belief that's been learned and embedded. I don't know if
I
that
think
relates.
what is interesting, it's like there is no snake. Like even when you see an image of a snake, the image of the snake is not the snake itself.
Mm,
So that is that to me it's a reflection of the mechanism of the limit of the human mind, that whatever it sees it believes it's true. That's why you
mm,
can hypnose yourself in different states, because whatever you believe you think is true to the mind, whatever it is, whatever you perceive, whatever you hear, it is like it make it true, literally. So what is interesting is like you cannot really trust your perception or your thoughts, but in the experiments that you say, Ramiz, you can the emotion, it's more real than whatever you see,
mm,
because you don't know if it's really real or really not, but you have to deal with your emotion. So
mm, mm,
so it's more interesting to learn to deal with the emotion than to deal with whatever is outside, because you don't know, it's too complex anyway to deal with it. But with emotion, it's different.
mm. But I feel, Ramiz, that we've lost what you were saying in the first place. We got carried away with other things. So coming back to what you were saying, what was the relevance of saying that?
It's about how it relates to intuition, and I was thinking about like the body is catching patterns and signals at a level beyond, like unconscious
Yeah,
level.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, we get that.
And when like how intuition is different from a traumatic response, like, or um, it seemed to me like it's all just mind stuff.
Hmm. I go along with that. Yeah. You know, there was an old saying about it's turtles all the way down, but I think it's stories all the way down. We spend our whole time, we wake up in the morning and there's a story that I've got to get out of bed. And we respond to that story one way or another. We roll over and go back to sleep, or we get up, whatever. We respond to the story. And that response to the story is an experience that we have, which then generates another story. And then we respond to that. And all day we have story experience, story experience, story experience. All day. That's it. The whole time we're awake. And maybe also when we're asleep. I don't know about that one. Yeah. Whenever we're human, we can't not have stories. It's part of the nature of being human to do that. But we can have better stories.
What is it? I don't know what is intuition. And really, I mean, the word that I mean, I don't use this word in my language. So in my thoughts, I don't really use it. But when I heard that, and my experience right now will be I'm learning to trust more his presence, his his inner flow that is inexplicable than the analytic mind, you know. And I see more and more that the analytic mind that kind of try to analyze the situation and make a rational choice to reach some personal gain and personal purpose and goal. I see that all of these mechanisms doesn't work. I mean, it seems to, but you, if it works, it's random, you know. It's just some luck, you know. But it is not because this mechanism actually deliver its promises, right? So I'm kind of learning to relay more, to read more step back, and I would say it has this state of this phase of faith, you know. I don't want to enter into what is faith, but you know, this kind of faith in life and just step back into this present and this feeling of everything is okay, you know. And it is very interesting because it's a completely different mindset in a way, and it doesn't require to kind of overlook completely perception and analytic and so it's interesting. Sorry, Rami, is interrupting.
Do you experience not okayness?
Not okayness, it's most of my day.
Oh,
stress, and arrogance, and everything negative. It's most of my day, mainly.
hmm. I must say, when you use the word intuition, Ramiz, my mind jumped up and said, I must ask you what your ideas about intuition is. And I guess that question arose because I've been using that word a little bit more lately, and I have an idea that it's very vague about intuition. And it's kind of more, it will present itself, what I see as intuition, it will present itself as a thought, but it has a certain flavor about it that is different to most other thoughts. But it's not a solid fact. It's not a conclusion of any kind. It's more like a question that arises. But that flavor kind of indicates something that is congruent with us. Now, I won't go as far as to say truth or real or anything like that, but it feels congruent. There is connection to it that I get with that. But the difficulty is, of course, that it can only present itself via the medium of a thought. So it's very easy to get muddled with other things.
My understanding of the intuition is just reading the vibe of a situation or a place, and sometimes you can like point to what's causing that intuition, but it can get more subtle and subtle to the degree that you don't know why you feel what you feel.
Mm. Yes,
But
it's
I feel like
certainly.
there's
Yeah,
like
go
a
on.
line between imagination or you're picking onto
Mm,
actual something,
mm.
an actual experience.
But
Like
what?
it's not just perceived something. Like it's like the difference between perceived danger and actual danger that we
Mm,
can.
mm. Yes, there's certainly no sense of factual about it. It's more a suggestion, but it's a suggestion that has a certain feel to it. Yes. And unless we um, value our imagination in a certain way, we won't have that experience. Hmm. I must look it up. I must do a Google on intuition and see what they say there. Yeah, that's a good one. But to be in touch with our intuition is to give us direction as well, isn't it? To give us guidance. We respond to it in a different way to how we respond to other things.
You see, this is why I think choice is not as black and white as
Mm,
we say sometimes. And as far as I'm concerned, I experience three levels of choice. I experience the natural human choice, right? I can do this, I can buy this food, I can do, the natural way of I can choose my work and all of this level. And then another level, I see there is a choice. You can choose focus. You can have this kind of sense of choice. I can choose to focus on this intuition, on this flow, on this presence, or I'm more attracted to distraction and whatever. And on another level is just, oh my God, everything is okay. Everything is amazing, you know? So, and the three are really, are present all the time. And
I feel
Yeah.
like go on.
no, I mean, to say that there's no choice is true. To say that you can choose the flow, intuition, or something else is true. And to say that you are human, you have choice is true. Everything is true.
I feel like there's the using of the word control or choice, like it can have different contexts, as you said. And when there's a point to no control, I feel like it's always about right now. Like I can't choose the movement, what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing. I can't choose that. It's just happening. And when the mind hear it at the level of time, and it's always wrong to believe one over the other. Like sometimes you can control something, sometimes you can't.
You see, you know the pathology of schizophrenia, right? It's when a brain have create multiple personality inside the brain, and those personality are not connected. They're not aware of the other often. So they discover a case of a woman who was blind, and she has schizophrenia. She has many, but two of the personality inside the brain, one was blind and the other could see. And they put electrode in her brain, right? And when the personality that could see, she could see with her eyes, and the brain activity was present. When the personality that was blind show up in her brain, the activity, the brain of the part of the brain that see with the eyes wasn't active. So literally the body couldn't see. So it's I think it's when we say choice, it's not it is at a level that it's way more complex that we suppose it is. So you choose to see, but you know, how can you make you can even make part of your brain stop seeing, literally, or stop feeling pain. But this choice is not in a level that is comprehensible or you can even speak about.
Hmm.
That's why the more I guide in LU, and the more I'm kind of uncomfortable with talking about control, because it requires, from my perspective now, more and more, it requires some kind of broader understanding, really. Like you said, there's no control, it's true, but you know, after there is some people who try to have no control, so after you are in a bigger mess, I feel.
Mm. It takes control to have to try to have no control.
Yeah.
Mm.
So often it's better to encourage controlling. Yeah, do this, and some points when you feel miserable enough, maybe they are open to the fact that nothing works, and other door open.
I think this thing about control and no control is just, I mean, if you can believe that you have control and you can believe that you have no control, but both of them are just beliefs. And I think it's taken out of proportion. Like when people who really understand what no control means speak about no control, what they mean is that there can be a sense of control. There can be a belief that you can control things. But just like how there can be a sense of self, you cannot find the self, or you cannot find control in direct experience. It only appears as a sense, which is a mental construct. But a lot of people, they also take up that view, that belief, like, oh, there's no self. Like they feel a sense of self, but then they feel a problem, but then they tell themselves there's no self, there's no self, there's nothing to do. It's kind of bypassing. It's the
Yeah.
same this control thing, because there's a problem, and then you clearly feel a sense of control that you can do something about it, but you want to just tell yourself, oh, there's no control, I'm not going to do anything. So it's just, I think the difference between actual no control and what some people view as no control is the difference between believing you have no control and experiencing no sense of control at some times, which gives you the insight that control is just a sense, a mental construct, just like the self. It comes and goes.
Mm. I would say that there is a practical value rather than the philosophical thing of whether there actually is control or no control or not or whatever. That's a philosophical conversation. Where the rubber hits the road, so to speak, on that one is that if I believe that I have control, then I go through life efforting. I go through control. I go through life trying to achieve things, and that is for sure a recipe for suffering. If I believe I have no control, then I surrender to what turns up, and that changes my experience in a big way. So whether we've got control or not is almost irrelevant. It's how does that change our experience? That's the real issue.
Yeah, and I think the point I wanted to get at was that it's impossible to authentically stop believing that you have any control unless you have experienced it directly. So you can't just adopt the belief that there's no control, then tell
For
yourself
sure.
that.
Yeah, that's a big one. So really, again, when I talk about that with people, when I'm guiding, what I'm trying to convey is that there's an infinite amount of involvement, circumstantial involvement in what goes on. So the idea that I have control wants to ignore all of those other circumstances that are involved in whatever happens. So the idea of having no control gives all of those other circumstances more prominence in what goes on, and therefore less attempt for me to try to have a certain outcome. I can see easily that whatever happens involves everything. Everything that's ever happened is involved. But before we go to that huge extent to that, even stuff that's around me, if I choose to have a drink of water, it's obvious to me that there needs to be a source of water, and that source of water involves a whole lot of things to make that possible. There needs to be a source of there needs to be something for me to put the water in to get it into my mouth, or even if I put my mouth straight under the tap, there needs to be a tap. There needs to be water. There needs to be and there needs to be a desire to do it. And this just goes on and on and on forever. That what's involved is so infinite, so complex, that the idea that I chose to do that is a simplistic thing. And it's pretty arrogant as well, isn't it? You're muted, David.
Yeah, I think what is useful and practical is how you feel. You know, try to go within a day with this understanding and try to see it in your everyday life. You know, do you really control your emotional state? Do you control others? Do you control this? What do you and to see how you feel in one position and how you feel in the other, and is the is the actual experience that will seduce you into one belief or the other, the one that is work better for you, you know, because both are can be useful. So I think it's this seduction, it's this beauty, it is this inner peace that will guide you more and more than trying, like Tyler said, right, trying to impose upon you some kind of belief or understanding. You don't impose yourself, but you explore. You know, you take one belief at a time, and you try to live under this belief for a while and see what happens. And like this, often you reach some kind of non-dual understanding very fast.
I think the idea of control is unfalsifiable at the level of, like, scientifically you can't disprove you have control or you have or you don't. It's like is because I feel like the idea of control is always about, or the lack of control is about now. Like right now, what I can control. It's like I'm always late to the party in a sense. Like, like when thinking of like, let's test if I have control, then I'm in imagination already. Because something will happen. Yeah, I decided to do that and I did that, so I have control, or I have some control.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept, some control. I used to say to people quite a bit, if you actually have control, then you will always have control. If sometimes you do and sometimes you don't, how can you call it control? Do you have accidental control or circumstantial control? But people do. People say, oh, well, I have control, but I couldn't control that. But this time I can control it. Or, well, I will attempt to control it every time, and sometimes I will succeed and sometimes I will fail. It's a paradox. It doesn't work. It's an oxymoron for me. If you've got control, you've always got control. And nobody has that. So control itself is a vague concept that doesn't relate to reality much at all. There is circumstances where it's useful to talk about like it's real, but it's not actually real. That doesn't mean the opposite is true. It doesn't mean we have no influence over things. It doesn't mean that we're not involved in whatever happens. You know, that's. But again, we can get into trouble pretty quickly with words there.
I think it's better to think about that in a it's participatory. That's right, I think
Yeah, I get the word. Yeah.
it's more it's more smooth if you think it that way.
Mm, mm.
You know, do whatever you can and it's fine
Yeah,
because
yeah.
because I like the way Tyler put it with the feeling of being threatened, that we feel threatened because we feel we are an entity that is subject to some threat from outside. And that's where the whole control story arrives. Because if you are
Absolutely.
when
Yeah.
you are very happy or you're doing a great or you're having great sex, you don't really think or
Yeah.
focus about any of that because
No.
it's when you start to it's only when the shit hits the fan that you how can I control? So
Yeah.
so so again focusing on on the seduction and on the pleasant aspect will and into what experience is and direct experience will often naturally you kind of you kind of you can overlook control altogether.
Mm.
And I think it's maybe better because now I am in a discussion about control with someone and it's just so messy, you know, because because it's like the discussion, you know, it's more a spectrum than really two colors, you know.
Mm. Mm.
So trying to speak about it and to reach some kind of clear conclusion and to be convinced about that, it doesn't work very well
Mm.
for me.
Yeah.
Maybe someone have better can articulate things better than me.
It's very tricky, isn't it? I mean, if you say, I have control, that's 3 words. That's a sentence of 3 words. And when you look at each of the words in the sentence, not one of them stands up. There's no I, there's no owning, have, and there's no control. Yet we say it like it's real. And if we focus in closely, it becomes just a mess. It's a dream.
You know, I'm saying all of this, and right now I am in my life. I'm searching a city where to live. So we are in a city, and it is the third city that we visit, and we say we'll stay here or not, and we talk about it, and we watch YouTube video about other cities and the hotels, and so I do a lot of inquiring about what is the good choice. At the same time, I'm here speaking that there is no control. So you know,
Mhm.
it's
Yep.
it's funny
And
sometimes.
where you end up deciding to stay, deciding like you have control, where you end up deciding where to stay will depend on a whole lot of random circumstances. You know, usually they'll be pleasant circumstances, and you'll go, "Oh yeah, this is good. I'll stay here." Yeah, yeah. And then you go, "Well, I made the decision to stay here." Yeah.
Yeah. But
It just happened.
what what is interesting is even if I inquire what is the good choice, my focus is completely different. Before it was pretty much mental, you know, try to project myself into what I imagine the situation will be, try to feel this, try to compare it with this other projection. But now it's completely different. It's more like I I search information and I let this information bring up to me, and I try to let the choice happen somehow. You know,
Mm.
I try to feel where it feels right. So so like you say, everything is the same, but everything is different. I don't know, right? I don't know. You know, so yeah, it's fascinating. I find it very interesting because not
Mm.
nothing has to change. You still can have search information and do everything you want, but the position is always different from where you are experiencing it.
Yeah. Well, that's really a profound statement, because this is the whole thing of waking up is from what perspective, what Tyler said earlier, from what perspective we view what appears to be happening. That's what it's all about. From a certain perspective that we might call awakened, we have a perspective that doesn't seem to resist what life presents. Yeah.
Often, when I'm choosing now, my mind always goes, you know, I'm going to lose, or it's worse, all of this story. And what is helpful now? I ask myself the question, what I'm losing, you know, if right now, what is present right now, and what I'm going to lose. And often it comes down straightforward, because I'm only in contact with my direct experience constantly. So whatever is happening, I will not have more sensation, I will not have more thoughts, and I will not have more perception. I've always have the same amount, which is the one that is right here. So it really cooled down this kind of the part of the mind that is very agitated into reaching conclusion and solution. Into yeah, right. I'm not losing anything. Everything is here already. So it's fine. I can still search, but it's fine.
I've noticed that when I have an anxiety about something, usually I don't have in mind what exactly I'm anxious about. Like it's like a vague thing, like I'm anxious about it. But lately I was trying to find myself like thinking like, what's the worst that can happen? Like how that would be more, would be just sensations. Like I'm scared of experience something that I'm not even trying to feel right now. Like
this is the mechanism of mind. It feels some inner sensation, and the mind has to find a cause outside. This is it's almost only function. You feel something, the cause is outside, you know, and it's almost unbearable at the beginning to just stay with a sense of like you say, a vague sense of fear. You don't know really what's happening, but to really just to learn to stay with the sensation as it is, because the mind is so strong to finding solution. To find solution, it has to perceive it. It has to make sense of it. It has to analyze it. It has to find the problem. But in the emotional realm, it's the rules are completely different. There is no solution. There is only the feeling of the sensation. Interesting. Yeah, I just have to go now. I have a very great time. Thank you, everyone. That's great.
Thank you. Yeah.
Bye.
Yeah. Okay. I think it's time to wind up, eh?
Yep.
Cool. Thank you. I'm pushing a little bit today because I've got somebody in an hour from now, and I need to go and have tea first. So I'll see you all later, eh? Good stuff though. It was good.
why
Thank you.
Oh, Vince, before you go, I wanted to ask, because you and David are guiding an LU, and I actually want to start trying that out.
Oh, good. Yeah. Okay. So Tyler, what you need to do? You've been through LU? I probably asked you this already, but I don't remember
No,
the answer. No, you
I
haven't.
haven't.
Okay. All right. So go to LU and register. And when you register, maybe ask for me, or it doesn't matter who you get, but if you just register and do nothing, you'll have to wait until some guide becomes free. But ask for me, or just tell me what your username is, what your registration is, and I'll pick you up, and we'll go through pretty quickly, I think. And then once you've gone through, then you're able to guide. So yeah, we just need to go through the process of making sure that you've seen through the illusion of self, and there's no question in my mind that you have. So we'll confirm that pretty quickly, and then you'll be able to guide. And then there's a few other procedures, but no big deal at all about doing that. But yeah, that'll be great. LU will really appreciate you, and so will all those people waiting all the time, and you'll get a lot out of it yourself. That's good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you an email. All right.
Yeah.
Go have
Okay.
your tea.
Good
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Right. Bye.
Bye.